Alright, in this video I'm going to talk about all of the errors and bugs that I had to troubleshoot. So originally the code for receiving the messages from a queue was just this line. So even though I specified the region and name for the queue like here, I still was receiving just an empty messages because I didn't specify the attributes. For some reason I was expecting that this thing would work, but this is the first time I'm working with Boto3 and SQS and pretty much everything else. So I had to Google and search on Stack Overflow to find out my mistake. I actually had to look at the official docs, I believe. Yeah. So if you want to get the messages from the queue, you have to specify the message attribute names for which you're looking for. Another thing in the original code is that it was calling the store vote function. And this is the store vote function. I'm not calling this anywhere at all. So I even left the comment here. This is basically saying that here's the error I had. I was putting this thing into table, rewriting my own A and B. So originally A and B, the dynamodb table should have just A and B and values, right? But this particular code, as you can see, it puts the item and it actually puts not the numbers but A and B itself. So my table would look like this: vote A or vote B and then vote A again. And it was basically, it was basically breaking the whole structure. So instead I had to just kind of just comment it out and not use this function at all. I'm not using this function anywhere. Instead I'm doing everything here in the update count function. Another thing that I recently debugged, the most recent thing, was that the actual user data script, is this one. It's actually quite different from the original one. So here I am pulling the processor.py script, actual script, give it the execution rights, installing the Python 3 pip Python 3 setup tools in order to install Boto3, and yeah, I'm actually launching the Python 3 processor Pi. I'm gonna show you the EC2 instance. This is the instance that I launched, and I haven't logged into it at all. So I just created it, launched it, gave it the proper user data script, and I never logged into it. And guess what? My actual project is still working nicely. I can illustrate you. I can show you that it's actually working nicely. So if you send the A and B, it's going to be actually changing. So the EC2 instance and the user data script that I passed on is running properly. I haven't logged into EC2 instance once, not even once, and it's still running there. But if I actually log in now, it's gonna stop the script and it will show me just the standard shell waiting for my commands. I also made a screenshot of the error that I had to deal with, the post 500 error, the infamous post 500 error. It took me a lot of time to debug it, but I want to draw your attention to the 204 preflight. So preflight request is the additional request that is sent before you do the post request, and it is actually automatically triggered if the content type, if one of the headers for the content type has application JSON. So if this content type is not text explained but application JSON, it will automatically trigger preflight request. And I figured out that I don't want to deal with any additional request. I don't want to be, having additional steps that I had to, check into and make sure they work properly. So instead I made it text plain. So text/plain makes your application not trigger, makes your browser not trigger any additional preflight request. So it just sends the post request, this one. It just sends the post request, and because you set up the content type to be text plain. If it is application JSON, it will automatically trigger preflight request, and you might have to encounter additional errors related to preflight request. Yeah, and actually I started using ChatGPT just to see if it's going to help me with my particular project, and to my great surprise, it actually worked really nicely. I'm going to show you. So I basically asked this question: why does AWS API Gateway Endpoint return 500 error? And it actually pointed out to me all of the possible causes, few possible causes. And when I actually read the point number 2, I was like, whoa, this is probably something I should look into. So I looked into endpoint request mapping template, and I figured out that my lambda function was not working properly. It was causing it to fail, causing the request to fail when it is sent to the backend, or causing to the endpoint to fail. That's exactly the error that I had to deal with. It was all in my voting lambda backend function. So I actually used ChatGPT to troubleshoot bugs in my project. Yep, so as you can see, this is the voting preflight request. So the preflight request is triggered, it is working nicely, it is returning status 204, which is okay. So basically all of the 200 statuses are okay, but I wanted to avoid it, so I used the content, I used this one, the text plane, in order to avoid triggering preflight request. And finally, another error that I had to look into was this one. It's pretty popular error. It says mixed content, the page at your CloudFront endpoint was loaded over HTTPS but requested an insecure script, blah, blah, blah. So in my actual index.html file, I had to change all of my HTTP to HTTPS, or actually for CloudFront, I removed all of them. So whenever you're using CloudFront and you're using S3 for your static website hosting, you better remove both HTTP and HTTPS. Just leave both two of these slashes and it's gonna be okay, it's gonna work nicely. Because CloudFront will decide himself whether to use HTTP or HTTPS, but if you hard code it, it's gonna give you this error, mixed content. So basically some content is trying to be sent over HTTP, but it's actually using HTTPS, which is insecure, and that's why it's actually giving you errors. And finally, another error that I had to debug using CloudWatch was this particular one. I want you to pay attention to this part, to the body message attribute. So the message that was auto-generated in SQS when it was hitting my lambda, or actually when it was hitting my EC2 Python script, it already had body in it, so I had to remove it. But the only way I could figure this out is when I actually looked into the full event. When I actually looked into the full event, what it was generating, all of these fields, I realized that I had two bodies, the body. So I had to remove one of those in my test event, lambda. And basically, yeah, just a small tip to you guys: if you ever face some issues with AWS components sending events, you want to make sure that you know exactly what that component is generating. It's not going to be your exact message that you want. It's going to be generating lots of additional information, and you have to look into these kind of errors. Okay, and finally, this is a screenshot from Stack Overflow answer. Basically, instead of re-uploading and rewriting the older versions of your file, let's say there is index.html file and I changed some code, I replaced HTTP with HTTPS, and I am actually just uploading another version of this code. It's not going to serve right away because it is eventual consistency. The S3 will not update my code to be the new version. Instead, you should probably just delete the entire file and re-upload it as if it was uploaded from scratch. So yeah, this is the list of the bugs that I had to troubleshoot. Really learned a lot of things. Thank you.